Good evening, everybody, and welcome to Punch, Kick, Choke, Chat. My name is Sean Benson. I'm one of your hosts, and I'm so excited for tonight's chat. When we get to the intros, I'm going to chat a little bit about why this is a special night for us. But as you know, we like to jump right into a deep discussion topic out of the gate, and we're here with Devon Harris. And Devon, I just want to ask you straight out, because we always like to start with something we can all maybe chip in on. And on your website, where you're talking about your motivational work, which is what I'm so excited to get into with you tonight, you have your fundamental idea is persistence over obstacles. And I just want to ask you about that, because that's something I think we can all relate to, no matter what our background is. How is it that you think you can best help somebody stay persistent and overcome their obstacles?
I think the first thing, as I said, the idea of persistence over obstacles is something we can all relate to, because there's no one person in the world who goes through life without not having obstacles to deal with. And it's I call it the biggest secret in the world, as it were. And so from the time of birth, we've been dealing with obstacles, right? We had to learn how to walk. And I don't know if anybody who, when they were trying to learn to walk and it didn't work out, they fell and they skinned their shin and their knees, just gave up and like, screw it, I'm done, right? You just kept trying until it happened. But here's kind of my fundamental view on the whole business of persistence, Sensei. I am unwilling to do without that which I want.
I love that.
And so if you want this thing, if like I like to use analogies a lot. And so let's say you're on this side of the street and that which you want is on the other side of the street, and you have to cross the street, and it's filled with potholes and traffic swinging, whipping by in both directions, right? You're gonna have to step off the curb or the comfort zone, out of the comfort zone of the curb that you're on, and navigate those potholes and the traffic that's going back and forth. That is a scary part and the challenging piece, right? Or you could choose to just sit on the sidewalk, on the pavement, and be miserable. Because the only reason why you want to leave this pavement, the sidewalk, is because what you have here isn't really working for you. What you see on the other side, and in other words, what you can imagine, the goals, the dreams that you have, is on the other side. And so because I'm unwilling, and that's what I challenge and encourage people to do, to be unwilling to do without that which you want. And you may fail, you may fall into a pothole, you may get hit by a car, I mean, figuratively speaking.
Mm-hmm. Or literally.
Yeah, possibly. But you just kind of, as I say, pick yourself up, brush yourself off, and keep on pushing.
So I feel like I got goosebumps at that phrase you said, and I feel like my teachers are going to have to help me stay on track here, because I'm going to want to pick your brain for an hour and a half straight. Here's my question for you, and we've talked about this on the show in terms of obstacles. What about when the curb isn't that bad? What about when the side of the road you're on is pretty good, but it might not be your maximum, but it's pretty good, like it's cozy?
Yeah, you've gotten there. So it's okay. In my book, I talk about three kinds of people. The non-starters, the joggers, and the pushers. And the non-starters are those people who they don't even want to get off the curb. They don't want to be a part of the game. They just give up on all the promise that life has to offer them. And then the joggers are the ones that are going, it's not, I'm going to try. I'm going to try a little bit. I'm going to put one foot off the curb and see what happens. These people are living what I call lives of quiet desperation. They're not happy. They don't feel fulfilled, and you can never feel fulfilled if you're just like, yeah, it's okay here. I know we're going to talk about bobsledding, but let me jump ahead a little bit. So when I was growing up, I had two main goals. One was to become an army officer. The other was to become an Olympian. I didn't have bobsledding on the radar then, but it's 1987. I'm 21 years old. I'm a newly minted Army officer. And I remember this conversation, I'm like this intense conversation I'm having with myself. I'm like, so you're 21 years old. You have achieved your big dream, you know, an Army officer. Dude, I'm a kid from the hood. I just came back from Sandhurst, the most prestigious military training school in the world. I could not have asked for more. Then I'm saying to myself, so what are you going to do with the rest of your life? I'm like, oh, and I kind of laugh at it now. I'm like, crap, I was 21 years old asking myself that. What are you going to do with the rest of your life? I'm like, oh yeah, the Olympics. So life can be pretty good, but I think we all have to really push. You know, I like to talk about keep on pushing. Bruce Lee, and I'm going to like totally destroy his quote, but it says like the quality of a great man is to basically work to become all that he can be. I'm completely messing up that phrase, but that has to be our thinking, man.
I love that. So I want to go around the horn and open this up to the other hosts. So I'm going to land back on you, Devon. So we'll start with you, Sensei Suino, then you, Hanshi Legacy, then you, Sensei Dauphin. What is it that you can most do to help people be persistent over their obstacles? Because it seems to me like everybody gets that that's necessary. But when you have someone in front of you, Sensei Suino, we'll start with you. What's the best way to keep them persistent so they do overcome?
Well, I don't know if there's one single way. I know one way is to model what you're hoping they will do, right? Be a good role model. That's our part of our job as senseis in the martial art. You can help inspire them with your words. And then I think a really big one in life is just to be there for people. You know, I love the image of an old coach who maybe hasn't been able to run or hasn't been able to do push-ups for 30 years, but he shows up every day at practice and supports the youngsters who are striving for their goals. I know in my life, the sort of senior statesmen that have been there for me, steady, you know, in my corner, supporting me, even if they're not doing the work I'm doing. For me, those have been the most inspirational over the long term.
Love that. Hanshi Legacy, how do you inspire people, or what kind of tools can help people stay persistent so they overcome the obstacles?
I think a lot of it, encouragement. You know, I have a student who is, for the lack of better words, a bit weak on techniques, or they get themselves discouraged. You always try to pick the finest qualities that they have and lead off with that. And that sort of pulls them into hopefully seeing themselves getting better and feeling better about themselves. I think that's a good way of doing it as well.
Thanks, Hanshi. Sensei Dauphin?
I agree with everything. Like, obviously, because Sensei Legacy and Sensei Suino have both taught me for over 30 years. I've been training with them for over 30 years. And so one thing, though, that I like to do, I did it tonight, is I like people to I like to put them in a position where they feel uncomfortable. Right. So I like it when they come in and they got to do their basics. So tonight when they did basics, I said to Ron Watson, who is leading the class, I said, Ron, make them do double everything that we normally make them do in the same amount of time. And you could feel the room collectively go, I don't know if I can do this. And then after they were done doing it, I really liked that. I said, you guys rocked it, man. Like so there's that. Get them in that uncomfortable state, then give them some positive affirmation. But I also want to say that, you know, modeling and being consistent are two things that are really high on my list as well. You need to model behaviors or people won't believe you, and you need to be consistent in your approach or you'll lose them as well. So what do you think, Sean, before you go back?
Well, it's funny because when you said modeling, Sensei Suino, I immediately pinged up and I wrote down attraction rather than promotion. That's an idea I got out of getting sober. We don't sell 12-step. You just get sober and people go, how the fuck are you living this healthy, great life all of a sudden? And it's because they want what you have. So I love that idea of modeling. I know we might promote our clubs. That to me is a different thing, but attraction rather than promotion about the art itself or the thing itself that might get the web page eventually. So I really, and any other one, again, that you mentioned, Sensei Suino, like being of service. right? Like by showing up and going, how can I help? Not what can I get? And someone might not notice that night one, but I do believe over time, they sit up and go, I have a relaxed trust of this thing, and therefore I'll take the ride, even if I'm not sure where it's totally going. So I'm sort of expanding on two ideas that you piqued in me, Sensei Suino, with your answer.
So then Ben's just take them to the highest peak on the roller coaster.
I love that. I'm literally writing that down. Devon, where do you go with that? Because, you know, this is your idea and this is your words. And then this is the question that I got from it. Like, how do you keep people persistent? Because it's obviously so key. How do you do it?
Yeah, I think it's been said, you know, already, you know, modeling, being a role model. I think if you yourself as a kind of person who is striving and being persistent, going after your goals, then you can speak with congruency. You can be authentic when you encourage or you challenge other people to do the same, right? Because you've been there before. So and they know you've been there before, and you can speak with that level of authority. But the encouragement and the belief piece, you know, getting them to believe in themselves, getting them to believe that, yeah, you know what, this is difficult, but I can do it. And you point to yourself and you point to others who have done it before and create that and help them to create that level of belief in themselves. If they can see examples of other people who have done something similar, they start to believe a little at a time, and before you know it, you have a badass on your hands.
I love that. So I'm going to start with you, Devon, and then we're going to pivot back around on one more idea before we get to our intros, because I just love these ideas. So how important is losing, or at the very least, having had significant obstacles?
It's not the fun part of the journey, man. But it's really important, though, and I talk about that all the time, you know, failure. And I was just talking about it this morning. I was speaking to a company, and I show us at the Olympics crashing, right? Failing. And actually, I like to do this fun exercise when I speak to live audiences, because I ask, so how many people have ever failed? How many people have ever failed and felt like a loser? And people are always, you know, apprehensive to go. And I'm like, come on, I want to see all the losers. And I go, so how many people have ever failed and felt like a loser on international TV, right? And you're like, I'm the biggest loser in the room. And yeah, so in those moments, it's not a feel-good moment, but it's a learning moment. It's what I call a teachable moment. And that's the thing with the failure and failures and the setbacks. What can you learn from it? It makes me more determined, man. It's like, what the France is going on here? Like, you know, I have, you know, in '88, I was a pusher, I became a driver, and I've crashed the sled a couple of times. And I have to be honest, it was never the sled's fault. But but I go, I look at it and say, what are you doing? We're going back to the top and we're going to do this again. Like, you know, it just makes me more determined whenever things don't work out well.
So we'll flip the order. Sensei Dauphin, how important is it to have lost or have had obstacles that seemed insurmountable to others, if you're going to help them?
Yeah, you know, Sean, like I've said this before, like I've fought in tournaments on a couple of different continents, and I don't remember all the people that I beat, but I remember every person that beat me. Like I remember them, like their face, how they beat me, what happened in that, like what went on. I think it's actually imperative. Like for you to succeed, you must fail. You must be uncomfortable. You know, and you have to embrace the suck. I guess you got to embrace it. You know, like I got up for a 15-year period in the winter, in the summer, every Saturday morning and drove my ass down tired to Sensei Legacy, only to get my ass kicked and beaten down and smacked down over and over again. And what's the result of that? I competed on an international stage and I was successful because as Devon was just saying, I was just too stubborn to not keep getting up and driving down the road to get my butt kicked again and again. And one final thing, Sean, before I like you run away with this is, I think often people, when they look back on the things that sucked really bad, they look back on it with fondness, right? Like they look back on it and say, oh, that was amazing. If you ask my daughter, Sydney, what's your favorite karate camp you ever went to? She'll tell you the one where it rained every day. Sense of Legacy made them train in the rain and it was muddy and their sleeping bags were wet and they had kind of cold sausages and the food wasn't good. She'll say that was my favorite karate camp. I look back on that camp with fondness and I'm so happy I went to that camp.
Yep. Love that. Hanshi Legacy, how important are the failures if you want to help other people through theirs?
I wouldn't call them failures, but you know, you have a guy like Rocky Marciano who never lost. So it's, in a way, it's important for the rest of us to know exactly when you lose a fight, and it sort of teaches you what level you're on, or if you give up, you know. So it develops character in different ways, losing and then fighting your way back. But sometimes losing is just, you know, not everybody's going to be perfect. So losing is just part of the game that I see anyway. Because most guys, like, say, Ali, who is probably my favorite athlete, he lost a couple of fights, but he didn't lose many. So it's sort of almost like a numbers game. It shouldn't really bring you down in any way. Losing is just like stubbing your toe and then going along. Do something. But if you keep losing all the time, then you shouldn't be there. So, you're in the wrong place.
You're in the wrong place.
Sorry.
No, I love the simple honesty of that.
Pardon me?
Sensei Sweeto. Oh, sorry, Hanshi, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Okay, no, I didn't hear what you said. I'm good.
Right on. I just said I love the simple honesty of that you might be in the wrong place if you keep losing.
Well, for some reason, this takes me back to my first day in a Japanese judo dojo. I've told the story before, but I walked into the dojo and there are 35 guys in there, 1 brown belt and 34 black belts. And they told me, go fight that brown belt. And I had 10 minutes of glory, followed by an hour and a half of getting my ass kicked by every other black belt in the room. You know, the Japanese saying is fall down 7, get up 8. Well, I fell down, 397 times, but I got up 398 times and dragged my ass home. And that is one of my favorite memories of 4 years in Japan. B, it formulated who I was, and it showed those guys that I was stubborn enough to keep coming back, not with anger, right? Not with vengeance, but just because I wanted to learn. And so in the moment, it gave me a little bit of credibility with some guys that had no reason to think I was anybody. And in the long term, it set the stage for, when I left 4 years later, I would be in a room of 50 guys and I could beat 25 of them. So it was better than day one.
Improvement.
Yeah.
Thanks, Sensei. The only button I want to put on that is, if I'm going to a personal trainer, I'm less interested in the person who's genetically gifted than the person who had to work for it, because I feel like they're going to know a few more things actually about pitfalls, obstacles, wanting that extra pizza at night, injuries, etc. And if I'm going to be a service to other people in my motivating them, if I've never failed or I've partitioned it so it's not a failure, how can I help them with theirs? And how can I be relatable? And it wasn't until I started failing that I realized how to relate to other humans, because I needed their help. And so it gave me a sense of what to offer when it was my turn to help them. Mm-hmm. And okay, it's so in the ballpark that I want to keep going with this, because we do have a question, but I am just going to throw it to you, Devon. We're not going to go around the horn on it. But from Sensei Copeland, we got a question that fits in this wheelhouse. So I just want to
another Jamaican guy. He's from Jamaica. Just so you know.
You have to watch out for them Jamaicans, man. One, if there's one, and there's going to be another, and then they
That's awesome.
So,
We love this guy.
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
he's family. And his question is, how do you get up on days when you're not your best? But then you have to keep those around you motivated. And he says, as a fellow Jamaican, thank you and congratulations on your success.
yeah, man, respect. Yeah, there are those days. There are those days when you don't feel like doing it, but you just have to make yourself do it, because you kind of have to keep the goal in mind, right? And I know I think as human beings, we are inherently lazy. I mean, I think we all want to take the easy route, but we recognize those of us who are success focused and driven recognize that there ain't no easy route. And so, yeah, there are those. And I talk about this all the time from an athlete perspective. You know, you see guys playing pro sports or at the Olympic Games, and you go, wow, they're so lucky. They're just playing sports and having fun. And I'm like, do you know how many mornings they don't want to get up? But they have to. I'm in Jamaica training and I don't feel like training. And I'm thinking about the dude halfway around the world who is training. And when we get to the Olympics, we're going to know. And so if you don't want to be embarrassed, so whatever trick you need to work on yourself is what you do. Like I'm thinking, if I don't train and I get to the Olympics and he was training halfway around the world, it's going to be obvious. So I better get busy here, right? And if you're a salesperson, the same thing, right? If you're not making those calls at the end of the quarter, it's going to be obvious that you weren't making the calls, but the other dude was making the call, or the other girl for that matter. So yeah, sometimes it's just willpower. But I think the more powerful pull is to keep your goals in focus.
I appreciate that. You just actually answered my question from earlier, which is this side of the curve might be comfy today, but it might not be that comfy in a week.
Yeah.
So you better get working. Move toward the good side now. I really like that. That helps me with perspective on that. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Punch Kick Choke Chat. You can see that this is just an awesome night already. It's going to be real hard to get down to specifics because I want to go even further on these specifics, because this is one of my favorite things in the world to talk about, is how to move ourselves forward as people and as becoming the best we can be. And I think everybody on this call would agree with that this is something we use martial arts to do every day, and Devon uses his athletics and martial arts, as we'll get to. So I'm super stoked, and I'm going to introduce my co-hosts, and then Sensei Dauphin is going to introduce our guest, and I believe Sensei Sweden is going to help a bit with that tonight. So Sensei Dauphin is a 7th degree black belt in Legacy Shorin-ryu Karate Jitsu, as well as Matsumura Hakutsuru White Crane, and he's a 4th degree black belt in Muso Jikiden Ishin-ryu Iaido, and he got that rank from Sensei Suino, who founded the Japanese Martial Arts Center, is an 8th Dan in Muso Jikiden Ishin-ryu Iaido, a 6th Dan in Judo and Japanese Jiu-Jitsu. And Hanshi Gary Legacy gave Sensei Dauphin his titles, his karate titles, because he is the founder of Legacy Shorin-ryu Karate Jitsu, as well as the Canadian Matsumura Hakutsuru White Crane. He holds a 10th degree black belt in both those styles, as well as a black belt in Iaido from Sensei Nicholas Suino. And it's my privilege and pleasure every week to be in the company of these men and these teachers. Sensei Dauphin, who we got tonight?
Good, Devon Harris. But before we move on, we need to always shine a little light on you, Sean. Sean's a 5th degree black belt in Legacy Shorin-ryu. He's a purple belt in BJJ. He's worked really hard to earn those ranks under instructors that have really high standards, right? All of us have sought out people. Sensei Legacy always had teachers with high standards. Sensei Suino always had teachers with high standards. Sensei Benson has teachers with high standards that make them uncomfortable and push them on. So yeah, I just want to point out that Sean is in the same category with all of us, just maybe has only done it for half of a decade less, right? Like that's, at least in my case, for Sensei Legacy, like 2.5 decades less. But it's my honor and privilege tonight to introduce Devon Harris. And I'm going to be totally honest. you could just go read his website and hear all the same stuff that I ripped off from his website, right? But it's his birthday coming up. Devon was born on Christmas Day.
Oh,
And yeah,
24 days to go, baby.
him and Jesus, you got the two, right? So, and like a lot of the people on this call, maybe not, it's always, you know, relative to where you are, but he was raised in a violent ghetto environment in Kingston, Jamaica, right? So rough neighborhood, not an easy place to live. But then you skip forward, he pushed himself in a direction where he graduated from the prestigious Royal Military Academy of Sandhurst in England, and received the Queen's Commission in December of 1985 and served in the Officer Corps of the Jamaican Defence Force until December 1992, when he retired as a captain. So thank you for your service, Devon. Thank you so much, right? We always respect that here because we're martial artists, military arts, and you were a military artist of the most extreme nature. So we talked about this before. He's a father of 5 children. I got him by 1. That's the only thing I can say I got him by. I got him by 1, right? This is the really like the thing I think people are most interested in outside of what we've just been talking about. But he was an original member of the 1988 Jamaican bobsledding team and captain of the 1992 and 1998 teams. He's a 3-time Olympian. And one thing I want to point out, if you're not aware, Jamaica's not really known for its snowy weather, right? So, you know, somehow he achieved this goal, like over obstacles that other people in Canada wouldn't have had to overcome. I'm really happy also, Devon, that your first Olympics, like I said to you, it was in Calgary, and I remember all the hype, and I remember watching you in Calgary do this stuff, which is awesome. I'm happy your first experience was here in Canada. So another thing I want to mention about Devon is he's an author. He's wrote a motivational children's book called Yes, I Can. And then again, that autobiographical motivational book about keep on pushing. You can see it on his shirt right now. Hot lessons from cool running, right? I have some questions about cool running. Like mostly, I'd like to know if you ever met John Candy, because I really like that guy, and it would be really cool to know your thoughts on him. But anyway, I want to finish your introduction. In the Korean Olympics in 2018, Devon was inducted as an Olympian for Life by the World Olympians Association for his significant contributions to society, which is, to me, more than being an Olympian, is if you can donate back to society and inspire more people. And that's cool that he's an Olympian for life. Now a motivational speaker, and at the heart of his message is, which I love it, we've just been talking about it, the power of perseverance over all sorts of obstacles in order to live one's best life. To bring this message of how everyone can keep on pushing on his shirt, keep on pushing and working for their dreams every day of their professional, and I think maybe more importantly, as well as their personal lives. That's my introduction for Devon. The one thing I also want to say is this has been outstanding. Before I kick it over to Sensasuino, already like one of my most favorite discussions we've had. We've had Devon, we've had lots of people on this call before, like, you know, world champion fighters, people who've, you know, overcome obstacles, physical to knock people out, and all kinds of really high achievers. You are the one and only Olympian we've had on this show so far, and I am so proud to be talking to you today and sharing with you, and that our audience gets to learn from you. So thank you so much for coming on today. And since you know, I know you have also some connection to Devon. So what do you want to say about Devon?
Well, I don't want to say too much because I really want to get into Devon's story. I've had the privilege of interviewing Devon and being interviewed by Devon. And we've talked everything from martial arts to Olympics, to motivation, personal development. But the hair on the back of my neck stood up when he started talking about his childhood and how he saw his way out of his circumstances into the future and how he lived into that, right? And he's sitting here today as a result of that vision and hard work. That's why he's on this show today. So I don't want to prolong this introduction. I want us to start asking Devon questions about how he got to be here today.
That's awesome. So just a quick bit of housekeeping. For everybody watching on YouTube right now, we're so happy you're here. Smash that subscribe and like button, or if you're watching a little bit later, same on the podcast. We're so happy you're with us. We're so happy you're taking this trip with us. And for everybody who's here live with us on the Zoom call, you get to ask questions. We've already got another one queued up and waiting. We've already had one from Sensei Copeland. So we're super excited about that, because that way you get to be part of the live format as sort of the living history that we're creating with this show. And then the last thing I want to say is you are listening to Five Adults Have a Chat. And if there's any content you don't like, we're not going to change it. So we've been talking about training and overcoming obstacles. I suggest you persist and you overcome the obstacle of your offense. And we'll keep talking. Devon Harris, we always start with the question, what was it like growing up for you and what brought you into your first dojo? So I want to flip that for you a little. And I want to say, what was it like growing up for you and what made you enter that military college?
So my early years, I understand from I was about 7 months old to about 5, I lived with my grandmother, my paternal grandmother in rural Jamaica on the southern side of it. And my grandmother, God rest her soul, was an amazing storyteller, man. But the stories that I think had the greatest impact were the ones she told me about soldiers and the amazing things that they could do. Like they could jump in these deep gullies and not break their legs. And it just kind of fired up my little imagination. I'm like, oh my God, I don't know if I could do that, but I'd want to do it, right? So that inspired me to want to join the Army. But more importantly, it inspired me to want to do things that other people thought were difficult, if not impossible. Those stories just kind of connected to something in me. So fast forward, I've moved back to Kingston to live with my dad in Olympic Gardens. Yeah, it sounds like a fitting place for a future Olympian, doesn't it? But as Sensei Dofa mentioned, it's one of the really tough neighborhood in Kingston, right? If you've seen these ads on TV, come to Jamaica and feel all right. They weren't talking about my neighborhood at all, so don't do that. But yeah, tough, violent, impoverished, and you just kind of knew that. That's kind of how I grew up. One of the things that I was always very competitive, I have to say. So I love school because that was a place that I had some freedom, I had agency, I was encouraged. I love to play. And so, I could play. My first love was soccer, and I could twirl the ball a little bit. And then I competed in the classroom as well. So that gave me a lot of validation. And of all the things I've wanted to be growing up, being in the Army was the one that was the most consistent. And then I discovered, heck, you could actually enlist as an officer. You don't have to be a private. I'm like, and I didn't know if I could do that, Sensei, but I'm like, ooh, I'd like to try that. So that really kept me focused in school as well, as I went through high school. And then you kind of discover that, boys from my neck of the woods don't normally enlist in the Army as an officer, but I'm like, man, I don't know how I've always kind of had this thing. I don't know how I'm going to do it. I just have to. And so that was kind of my focus. And I just kind of stayed in school, I'm not a Rhodes Scholar, but I did crack a couple of books. Became inspired to also compete in the Olympics around about age 15, but the Army was the main thing. And so, finished school, and we can talk about that whole selection process to get in the Army. But, I went and they liked my smile, man, and they selected me, and here I am.
I like your smile too. I like
you
that
got a
smile.
great smile. I want to back up and I want to not gloss over something I think is pretty important. You're 15 years old and you're like, I want to be in the Olympics. But
Mhm.
you, and again, we'll get there, but you end up in the Olympics for something that doesn't really exist down there yet for you. So what in your head at age 15, is it just the concept of the Olympics, or are you running at that time in a way that seems like it could do it? Like what's making you think that's even possible?
Yeah, so I started running at 15, started training seriously. It was 1979, the year before the Moscow Olympics in 1980. And ABC Wild World of Sports had this series called Road to Moscow, highlighting athletes from around the world, different disciplines and so on. And you know how when you think of Olympic athletes, you think of these superhuman beings. And what I saw in those series was very average and ordinary people, but they had extraordinary dreams and an equally extraordinary desire to go pursue those dreams. You know, and it was just kind of amazing to watch them struggle to do their sport, to qualify for the Olympics, and struggle to live their lives outside of sports. And I'm like, wow, you know, that's kind of like me. And so that's what inspired me, that this kind of gave me the idea that maybe I could become an Olympian as well. And so you go back to my grandmother again and the stories that she told me, that started to connect. I'm like, wow, maybe I could become the first high school athlete from Jamaica to compete in the Olympic Games. I think there's somebody who did it prior, but I didn't know that. But that's just kind of how I think. And we were talking about failure earlier. Dude, I did not come remotely close. not, you know, I stood a better chance making the bobsled team than going to the Olympic, than going to the Summer Olympics. In any event, again, the Olympics were something that I wanted to do, but the army was something I just had to do, right? I wanted to be a soldier, but it was also the quickest way out of the ghettos. Like, because I wanted to get out of the ghetto yesterday, not today or tomorrow, like yesterday. So if you fast forward, I'm 21 years old, having this intense conversation with myself about what I was going to do with the rest of my life, now that I was an army officer. I'm like, oh yeah, the Olympics coming up in 88 in Seoul, Korea. So I started running every morning, trying to get fit. And two Americans who lived in Jamaica came up with the idea to start the bobsled team. Long story short, they came to the army looking for athletes. And I'd caught the eye of my commanding officer. I'd gone to run a cross-country race, and they're like, oh my God, he's fit. Because, you know, I used to be young and foolish. Don't judge me, okay? I used to be young and foolish. And I jumped from a plane. Nothing was wrong with the plane. I jumped from it and I broke my ankle. So I wasn't a picture of an athlete when I came back from England. And so I'm kind of limping around biased, but now, you know, I'm running every morning before reporting for duties, run this cross-country race. The colonel is like, oh, he's fit. I should send him to the bobsled team trials. Because of a philosophy in the army that says officers must always participate, and he had a bunch of enlisted men going to the team trials, so he thought he'd send his young, fit officer to make up numbers. Really never expected me to make the team, but I am not wired that way. If I'm going to go to the team trials, again, I was like, I don't know how I'm going to do it, but Lord, I have to make this team. So I went, man, and I just, like, dude, I worked hard. I worked really hard, and yeah, it worked out.
And how long was that selection process? Was it pretty rigorous? Was it just day after day of
it was 2 days. So they were testing for speed and explosive power. And here's where I'm at a great disadvantage. I'm a middle distance runner.
Yeah.
That's one. Two, I considered myself at the time as army fit, not sports fit. So I could walk 100 miles with 50 pounds on my back and a rifle in my hand, but I hadn't been doing any sports training. So I remember, excuse me, about like, I don't know, a couple of weeks before the team trials, I knew I was going, and I knew I didn't have enough time to really train to become sports fit, as it were. And I remember going down to the running track on the army base, and I ran 30 meters, I ran 60 meters, I ran 100 meters, just to give my body and my mind a sense of what that felt like. I couldn't get my body up to speed, I didn't think, but I had to get my mind up to speed. And so I just went to the team trials. I'm like, okay, I know what running these distances felt like. I already knew what running 300 meters felt like. That's what I ran for speed work as a middle distance runner. And yeah, I just went there and just busted it out. There was one test, we call it a push test, with a makeshift sled on wheels. And although I didn't know anything about bobsledding, I'm like, this has to be the most important test. And I ended up with the 2 fastest pushes. I pushed faster than the fastest sprinter that was there. I just, mind over matter, man.
So let's talk real quick about that, and then get back to leading your way to the Olympics with this. But you've talked about the mental, you've talked about being okay cracking the books, you've talked about even that, the ability to take in the picture and go, okay, I need to get these distances under my belt. Was that something innate in you, or is that something you were taught? And is that something that you now really stress, that mind, body, and how to get that kind of picture? So that seems like it was fundamental.
Yeah, it's something that I don't know, I kind of developed. I attended a high school that didn't have a very strong sports program. And so at 15, when I started, we had a coach. And then the following year, we didn't have a coach. So I coached myself, and I would go to the school library and I'd borrow books on middle distance running. There was a bookstore in Kingston. I always used to say I couldn't afford to buy the book. So I would go in there and I would be sneaking behind the shelves and reading the book. And one day the security guard chased me out. Like, I see you here hiding around the corners, like, because they thought I was there to steal, but no, I was just reading, man. So yeah, so I just kind of developed that, just that sense of self-efficacy and just learning to depend on myself. And yes, kind of picturing. I was using this visualization thing before I had a word for it. Yeah, I would, we have this big intra-school meets, a sports day, and I'm going to run the 800 and the 1500. It's a given. I'm winning, right? Like that's it's a given. But I always ran the 400 as well, which was a tough race for me. I'm not a sprinter. And I remember one year in particular, dude, I went to bed and I didn't really sleep that night. I was in a stupor. All I was doing was just playing that race in my head over and over again, how I was going to run it and how I was going to win it. And then I got to school really early and I went on the track and I walked around the track as if I'm running and winning the race. So I've been visualizing for a long time. I just didn't know that's what it was called. Nobody taught me that. I just did it.
Right. That's amazing. So now you're on the Olympic team. Talk to us about being selected to making your way to Calgary.
Yeah, so there were 2 American guys who had come down to put us through the paces. And I remember one of them saying to me, you had a good day today, and I was encouraged because, I was, in my head, they were going to select 4 people. And dude, there were some fast guys there, and I'm trying, as we're going through this thing, I'm kind of assessing how the others are doing and how I'm stacking up against them. And I'm thinking, I'm just fighting to get in that top 4. So he says you had a good day today. I went back to the base. I fell asleep. I woke up on Saturday morning, and my friends are calling me the Olympian because on the sports news, they announced that Jamaica had a bobsled team. So I'm encouraged. About 2 weeks later, I got an airline ticket, and they say you're going bobsledding. And this is September '87, by the way. So we flew up to New York and drove to Lake Placid, New York, which is about 5 minutes north of where I live now. And met our coach, saw a bobsled for the first time. Went to the ice rink with the American team. with the Jamaican swagger and arrogance, right? They invited us to come practice with them, and we have never seen a bobsled before, never seen so much ice before. We go, oh, let's go beat them. We strolled out on the ice. Oh, horrible, disastrous. I mean, we spend more time on our butts than we spend pushing the sled, you know? And I'm thinking, wow, this bobsled thing is harder than I thought, but kind of survived the weekend. It was just a weekend trip. We went back to Jamaica, used that old makeshift sled on the army base, kind of just pushing it 3 hours every afternoon, 6 hours during the week, 6 hours on a Saturday morning. And then eventually we went to Calgary in October of '87 and went on a bobsled track for the first time. And now I tell people, because I joke around a lot, people think I'm kidding, but I am scared of speed and height. You know, I was a brakeman at the time. Again, you go back to the whole story of my grandmother and always wanting to do that thing that was most difficult. And not knowing anything about the sport, the brakemen had to score more than the drivers in the test. So I'm like, I want to be a brakeman. That has to be the important role on the sled. Only to discover that now the driver is a dude. In any event, I was too scared to drive that first year anyway. So imagine you're crawling in a sled behind a guy who had never driven one before himself. You know, and you know, you go from the half mile, and I remember, like, I am like like nervous. That's an understatement, right? And like, I tighten my helmet as too tight, I loosen it as too loose. I didn't know what to do with myself. And I just said, you know what? If I die, I die, but I'm going. And so I just went. We went down, and we had 3 runs that first night. And I remembered on that 3rd run, I was still scared to death, but I was hooked. I remember that corner that we crashed in during the Olympics is called Kreisel. It's about, the German word for circle, it's about a 270-degree turn. And I remember on that 3rd run, as we're going through the Kreisel, I'm shouting, I'm like, go, Sammy, go, go, go. I was just, dude, I was hooked, man. Still scared to death, but that was my sport now.
Let me ask you this. So, you know, a lot of this is portrayed in the movie Cool Runnings. I love this movie so much. Do you, I mean, obviously it's not 100%, but do you feel they got the sense of it? Does it feel like how it felt when you watched that movie, or did they really get far away from how it was for you?
Oh, yeah, there are a lot of poetic licensing that was taken. And you know what, I get it though. I'll tell you a story, and I realize, I mean, they depicted the spirit of the team as underdogs fighting to overcome. But in many respects, the true story is even more remarkable. So when you think of us, and the movie portrays us training and competing as a 4-man team from the very outset. You know, the truth is, we never did the 4-man event until the week of the event at the Olympics. The first time we competed in a 4-man bobsled race was at the Calgary Olympics. One of our team members, Chris Stokes, that was the first week he was seeing a bobsled.
Wow.
Wow.
No, if you put that in a movie, people go, come on, man, that's corny.
Yeah.
But that, you know, it was the 2nd week of the Olympics. We were not entered in the 4-man, and we go, hey, the Jamaican thing, you know, we should enter the 4-man so we can all win a medal. Yeah, good idea. Let's do that. Chris, you're a sprinter, right? So we recruited Chris that week. But you know, that was such a fun ride though. So let's talk about the race a little bit. The race is over 2 days. So we're just getting the sled that week, rented it from the Canadians, painted it up black with gold and green stripes. And the first run was okay. I think the first run, because a really old sled, I think it's the first run, Dudley, our driver, as he's getting into the sled, the push bar collapsed. But he's able to get in, right? the second run, so I'm sitting behind Dudley. I'm the number 2 guy. Michael White is behind me, and you can see it on the videos. I get in, and Mikey comes in behind me, and his spikes are stuck in my thighs. And I'm trying to dislodge his spikes so he can sit down. And Mikey is standing halfway up in the sled going through corner 1 and 2. And people are like, sit down, sit down. Like, we know. But we survived. And then you ever have those days that just don't start out right? So second day of the race, we're leaving the village. And I think it was Mikey, I can't remember for sure, left his helmet. So we had to double back to get the helmet. Fine, no harm, no foul. We get to the track, Dudley goes to walk the track, the drivers always do, and the rest of us, we prepare the sled. We take it to the top of the track. We're sitting in the warm house waiting. Dudley comes in looking all unhappy. What happened? He slipped on the ice during the track walk and sprained his collarbone. Anyway, we didn't have a physio. The British physio sprayed the magic spray, fixed him up, and we're good. And then we ended up pushing the 7th fastest start time. And we're going down the hill, and so poor Dudley is kind of seeing a brand new track because he has never gone so fast before. And yeah, that spectacular crash happened. But that's how it happened for real, it's and if you put that in a movie, people go, come on, man, that's so far-fetched, it's not funny. So fact is sometimes stranger than fiction.
Wow. Sensei Dauphin, I know you had a question about one of the people in that movie.
Yeah, I'm curious, Devon, I don't want to turn this away from you, but John Candy is one of my favorite Canadian comedians of all time. Did you get a chance to meet him when you were doing the movie? Like, what people did you meet? Like, what questions did they ask you, the actors ask you? And Sean already covered it when he said, like, did they follow true? But what was John Candy like? Was he larger than life? How big was he when you stood next to him?
Yeah, I felt pretty small next to him. John Candy is such a cool dude, man. A much better person than he is an actor, to be honest. It was so flattering to be, it's really cool to be on a Hollywood movie set, I have to say. And super flattering to be on a Hollywood movie set, watching them make a movie about a part of your life. I mean, when I was growing up in Olympic Guards, I never could have dreamed that. That experience is kind of the stuff that Hollywood movies are made of, and just being there, soaking in all of that, and hanging out with the actors and the stuntmen. Dougie Doug, I'd seen him in movies before, and I knew that in Cool Runnings, one of the characters had dreads, and I'd seen Dougie Doug in movies before, and he didn't have dreads. So the first time I see this dude, I walk up to him and he has dreads, and I pull on his locks. I'm like, are these real or what? And they were real. I'm like, oh man, sorry. I thought it was a wig. But yeah, it was amazing experience.
The crash, we started out talking about persistence, obstacles, failure. You crash on the world stage. It's one of your openers when you do your speeches now to help other people get through their tough times. How did that feel on international, multi-million people watching? Talk us through as much of that as you'd like.
Embarrassing, man, embarrassing. So when we got started in the sport, because there was such a short lead time up to the Olympics, the coach had told us brakemen that we can look over the driver's shoulders just to, speed up their acclimatization to the sport. So that's one. Two, I now knew that I wanted to be a driver. So that was another reason for me looking over the driver's shoulders. And that continued into the Olympics. So after day one, we're in the village, and Dudley, who was an army captain, I was a lieutenant, so he outranked me. calls me into the room and he presses pause on the VCR remote rather angrily, and he goes, "What's that?" And there is a picture on the internet somewhere where like the sled is going down the track, a left-hand turn, and there are two bright helmets with two pink goggles looking out, right? And they're only supposed to be one. The other one was me. And he goes, "Take the goggles off." Captain told me to take the goggles off. I took the goggles off, pushed the 7th fastest start time, jumped in the sled, buried my head in the sled, and we're going down, and everything feels fine. And then we got out of corner 8 and we hit the wall. I'm like, all right, cool, that's fine. There's a long straightaway before 9, we should be okay. Then we hit the wall again. I'm like, that's not so good. And expected that the sled would do what we call a wave, up and down. And if you watch the footage, you kind of see the sled going in and out of the frame. Then I fully expected that we would come around the corner, slam into the wall, and continue down on our merry way. And the next thing I knew was that we're over. So when I watched the film, what happened is that there's a point near the end of the corner where the sled should have been going down. We were going up because we had missed what we call the take on early in the corner. And when I'm a driver and I get to that point, I literally, and I made that kind of mistake, I literally feel my eyes grow bigger and I'm waiting for this one spot where the sled needs to be, and then I just haul it, right? And it's not comfortable, you slam the wall, bang, but you stay upright. Dudley didn't do that. So we went over, and I just remember thinking, oh my God, we're over, how embarrassing. That's all I'm thinking, man. How embarrassing.
You weren't thinking about the rented sled and who owned the sled?
The Canadian sled?
That's why you pay a deposit.
Did you have insurance on that rented sled for damage?
I don't even know. Good question. I don't know. I didn't really participate in the business side of things, but I'm sure there's always allowances because there's a possibility that you could crash the sled. But no, I wasn't thinking about the sled. I was just thinking about do you understand what it is to be a Jamaican at the Olympics? You're not supposed to lose. And here it is that we had lost, man. We just crashed. And I'm like, oh my God, this is embarrassing. And it feels like forever. A crash is, wow. Feels like you're going to the twilight zone, like you're going really, really fast, and in the split second that the sled leaves the ice, you feel like you're in slow motion. The whole thing slows down, and then it flips and it hits the ice, and everything speeds up, and you see flashes of white. You hear the awful sound of the sled scraping on the ice. You smell fiberglass burning around you. And you can't really move. You just kind of have to hold on and go along for the ride. And we eventually, came to the end and crawled out of the sled. And clearly we had not crossed the finish line. So we're out of the race. We're already out of the race, but now we're really out of the race completely. And we kind of pushed the sled across the finish line up the braking stretch. And, people, the Calgarians were awesome. Thank you so much. People were so kind. They started to cheer. We love you. We love you. And I remember shaking one guy's hand, and then I had to shake almost every hand as I tried to exit stage left,
Yeah.
I was kind of
in Alberta, that's the worst part of our country. Those are the worst people in Canada. So, and if they were all shaking your hands, it only gets better in the rest of the
they were awesome, man. They were awesome. And then of course, I was kind of the spokesperson for the team. So I think it was ABC that was carrying the Olympics then, and they wanted to interview me. And I tell you this now, and the sensei will tell you that if a Jamaican tell you soon come, it could mean 5 minutes, it could mean 5 years. I told them soon come, and I haven't been yet. Because honestly, I didn't know what to say then. And like, what do you go to the world and say after you've just failed in front of the entire world? I didn't know what to say, man. So I gave them a soon come.
Yeah. How long did it take you to get okay with it?
That crash, we were talking about failure and how when I fail, I'm even more determined. All of us, like, just like, okay, so we're going to come back and do this again in 4 years. You know, we were embarrassed, but it's like, okay, so but we're so much better than this. This is not how we're going to go. We're coming right back. So we were cool after the dust settled, so to speak.
Right on. We're going to do a quick around the horn about crashes, and then we're going to get you to your 10 questions, Devon.
Ooh.
So your most embarrassing crash, however that is for you, Sensei Suino, and how long did it take you to get okay with it?
Oh boy, my most embarrassing crash. And there's so many little embarrassments. You know, I've told you before, I have no regrets in life. There's lots of feet and mouths. There's minor car crashes. I don't. Let's ask everybody else and let me have some time to think. I can't think of. I never crashed quite so largely in front of an international audience. So let me cogitate on it. Why don't you ask the other folks?
Sure, Sensei Suino. Hanshi Legacy, your most embarrassing crash, how long did it take you to get okay with it?
Well, I really haven't had anything quite like that, but I remember when I first bought my motorcycle and I tried to do a wheelie, and I didn't have a what they call a sissy rail at the time, you know, and I slid right off the back of my bike, fell on my ass on the pavement, and my bike went down the road by itself. In front of the other guys, I was a bit embarrassed there, but everybody has something like that.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sensei Dauphin?
Yeah, you know, there's one time, Sean, like there's the personal one, like where you were in front of people as an athlete. Like as an athlete and a martial artist, I once went on a streak of big tournaments. I never lost a tournament for 6 years other than in disqualification, except once. And I lost 5-3. Sensei Legacy's laughing because I remember just being so pissed off when I lost that fight. And I remember getting in the back seat of his car and we were driving for like 30 minutes and he kept looking in the rearview mirror at me. And then he said, I'd ball you out, but I can't say anything to you that's going to make you feel worse than you're feeling right now already, right? Because I had lost to somebody that had no business, maybe even being in the ring with me. So whatever though, like, how long did it take me to get over it, Sean? At the next international tournament when I stood in front of him and beat him 5-1, and I got all the points because the 1 point that he got was a penalty point from me doing something that I wasn't supposed to do. But you know, as far as embarrassing moments in your life, it's when you let somebody else down that's really important to you. You know, I said it before, Victoria Feth, once because of my own bullshit in my life, which wasn't real bullshit, she was a student of mine and is a student of mine since she was a little kid. And she invited me to her wedding and I missed that wedding. And I'm still embarrassed to this day. I'm not sure that I'm still over it yet because I should have been at that wedding and I let her down. And I regretted every day that I let her down. And so every day of my life, if I can make that up to her, I'm going to.
Right on. Sensei Suino, you ready yet? Or you want
Well,
me to go?
The embarrassments that I have on the level of what Randy just said about missing somebody's wedding are so humiliating that I can't even say them in a public forum. But I'm happy that Hanshi mentioned motorcycles. The first motorcycle I ever bought, a Honda 550. I read an advertisement in the newspaper and it gave an address in Ypsilanti, Michigan, which is the next town over. So I went to the address and it turned out the address was a porno theater. And I walk into the place and the guy goes, oh yeah, it's chained in the back alley. Why don't you go look at it? So I had to walk down the middle of in the daytime, I had to walk down the middle of a porno theater. I think there were 3 guys in there watching this porno. This is before the days of video. So I was already feeling a little odd, but the motorcycle was very nice. I paid the guy $500 for it or whatever. And I had my father's Ford pickup truck. And I don't know what possessed me, but with the help of the previous owner, we picked that motorcycle up and we laid it down in the back of the Ford pickup. And I never put the tailgate up.
Ooh.
It's been, you know, from being 19 years old or something, like just, you know, it's a freaking teenage idiot. So I get in the truck and I'm driving back to Ann Arbor.
In a hurry, because you were just in a porno theater.
I was just in a porno theater. And so listen, I stop at a red light and I'm waiting for the light to change. The light turns green. I hit the accelerator and I start going and I hear a giant crash.
Oh God.
Here you go. The motorcycle slides out, falls down, you know, breaks a mirror and a handlebar and scratches the tank. I stop the car. There's a huge line of cars behind me, right? Waiting for me and honking the horn. I get out and I'm contemplating how I'm going to put this motorcycle back in the truck. And it turns out I'm in front of the office, a stockbroker office of my dad's best friend, who then walks out of the office and stares at me like, oh my God, my best friend's son is a complete fucking moron. So, except for the real humiliations, that's got to be the stupidest I've ever felt in my entire life.
Mm.
And there's another statement I want to add since it's funeral, but I'll add it later when the camera's not on.
Fair enough. I know what you're going to say. Save it.
And why does my best friend's son have?
Yeah, keep going. We're moving on from this topic. Right? Yeah, well, you can see it from a distance, so you can just shut up.
Just before we get to the 10 questions, I don't want to take too much time on mine, but you know, I went to LA to become a movie star. Things were going very well for me. I just kept getting better part after better part, and I got hooked on cocaine, heroin, crystal meth, alcohol, and I destroyed that version of my career. And I got fired off of a nationally, internationally recognized show. And I'd say, you know, it took me 2 years to get sober after that. To get over it, I'm going to say a decade. I'm going to say by the time I was 40, I was able to stop feeling ashamed, guilty. I'd made amends to everybody, but I still felt like I'd wrecked something. And I probably did, you know. I missed 5 pretty key years of my career there. And it is what it is. I'm way happier than I think I would have been otherwise. I've been able to have deeper relationships and a sense of self and faith, but that cost me. That was embarrassing on every level. Addiction's real, but that was embarrassing.
I was hoping you were going to bring that up, Sean. And I want to say, like, I want to get your back right now and say, I look up to you and I'm so proud of you for what you did and all the hard work that you put in to get yourself to the place that you are right now, because yeah, you're in such a better place now. Like, yeah, you're such a person and inspiration for people to look up to now based on that work that you did over the last 15 years.
Well, I appreciate that. And you know, going back to that idea of failure, I don't think I'd have as much to offer other people if I hadn't gone as far down as I'd gone. Maybe it cost me $1 million in acting revenue, but it gained me something much more valuable, which is like a place to offer something back. But let's get on to Devon. You know, so our 10 questions is normally really specifically geared to martial arts. So we're going to get to martial arts after these questions. But these are our 10 questions that we ask everybody. I've modified them a little for you, more around athletics, but I still want you to answer as impulsively as you can, and then expand on your answer as needed. So what do you find to be your most effective tool to motivate yourself or others to excellence?
My mantra. So I was called Pele in high school because of the soccer thing. So I usually say, "Come on, Pele, let's go, let's do it. Come on, baby, we can do it." So it's a self-talk. I keep talking to myself, but I usually refer to myself as Pele as opposed to Devon. And that's what
right.
how I would encourage someone as well. I'd say, "Come on, let's go. You can do it."
But it's positive self-talk, right?
Positive self-talk, yeah, completely. Mm-hmm. Although I have to say, I have not in the past. I've not always used like, "You fucking moron. What are you doing? Like, but I've learned to be kinder to myself now.
Who do you think's the most influential athlete of all time and why?
Ooh. It's probably, it has to be Muhammad Ali. From an athletic point of view, that's clear, right? It's an amazing athlete, but then just the stance that he has taken on faith and just what he believed, and obviously paid an incredible price for it, but now, and his passing is world's most known athlete of all time. So, he's the man.
Love that, Devon. Thank you so much. Sense of Legacy and our hearts just swelled when you started talking about him.
Yeah.
He's the man.
You could have been the king of the world.
Yes.
A little braggadocious, but hey, it worked for him, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not bragging if you can back it up.
Well, it's just that I have a different personality. And I'm the kind of guy, okay, keep talking. We're going to see. Let's step.
Who's the most influential coach, athlete, martial artist in your life?
Sensei Sam, I did Goju for a little bit, and he was a really good instructor and a good a mentor for me at that time.
If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you get there?
Well done, you've been a good friend.
What excites you most about the next 5 years of your athletics, your martial arts, being in your body, doing your work?
So I used to be 7 foot tall and invincible. I'm not sure if you can tell that.
You and me both, Devon.
Yeah, I'm excited about just getting back to relative fitness. I'm going to be 60 in a couple of years. Jesus, hard to believe. But being active, more active than I am now, and just growing my speaking, doing some more personal coaching, impacting lives in a deeper way, and then of course enjoy my family as well. I have adult kids, I have grandkids now, and I'm looking forward to that new chapter in my life.
Do you have a favorite film or television martial artist?
Ooh, geez. Is that Van Damme or is it Bruce Lee? I'm not so sure, man. It's like those two guys. I know. Forgive me. That's a commercial side. I know you guys are laughing at me, but I kind of grew up watching Bruce, of course, and in my young adulthood, I was watching a lot of Jean-Claude Van Damme. Jean-Claude Van Damme, I look good, kind of thing.
Is there an athlete, a coach, a martial artist that you'd like to train with the most, living or dead?
Ooh. Can I be so presumptuous to say my namesake Pele?
Oh, you can.
Yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah.
Great answer.
What an athlete.
I'd love to train with him. Yeah.
Wow. It's just one of the delights of having our first non-overt martial artist in there. You're here for some other reasons, and it's great to get that other perspective. I haven't thought about Pele in years.
Yeah.
So what's the?
But right now, you got to be thinking about him. It's the freaking World Cup. Like, how can you not be thinking about Pele now?
It's all I'm thinking about now, Sensei.
Yeah. You need to get your head right. You need to get your head right, Benson, and start thinking about.
I hate this. Devon, regardless of whether anybody goes to the Olympics, trains martial arts, is a high-level athlete, what's the greatest benefit that you've gotten from your experience with those things that if you bestowed it upon them, it would make their life better? What's the greatest benefit they would get?
Other than obviously the health benefits, it's the relationships, man. Maybe one of the most amazing thing about the Olympics is you get to meet people who under normal circumstances you'd never meet. And you just have, like, kind of in the martial arts world, you have this kingship with all the people that you come across because you know what they have done to get to where they are. And all of us as Olympians share that as well. And it's just so freaking amazing, like, to be watching TV and go, oh my God, I know him or I know her, and how they have grown. And it's just amazing. It's just, I call it utopia, being in the Olympic Village and hanging out with these people and just recognizing that we have so much more in common than the differences that readily meets the eye.
That's awesome. And were the parties just crazy?
I don't know what you're talking about, man. No. So
Come on, Devon. Sensei Swino talked about walking through a porno theater to buy a motorcycle.
No one's watching.
Olympic
No one's
Village.
watching.
So here's a screwed up part about being a Jamaican bobsledder, man. In 1988, we had a 9 o'clock curfew. I mean, I was so upset. 9 o'clock, I'm laying in bed looking at the ceiling, right? And like the next morning, I see my friend from another team kissing his girlfriend as she drops him off. See you later, love. I'm like,
What?
Yeah, it was horrible. So that was Calgary. Albertville, La Plante, the Olympics were spread out all over the village, all over the Alps. And La Plania, where we had the village, was just bobsledders and losers. There's no fun there.
Man.
Yeah, Nagano was a little better, but yeah, I was a supercharged, super focused that first week. And then I left and right after the Olympics and came back to the US. So yeah, all the stuff that I hear about, I have to tell you the story, but all the stuff I hear about, like all the partying and the sex, I'm like, what? That's happening? So so I'm in Nagano. I'm in the village, and these Olympic officials are walking around, right? And I kind of came up on them, and we stopped and we're chatting, and this woman hands me a packet, and on it is the pictures of the Olympic mascots. And I look at the packet, and I look at her, and I look at the packet, and I look at her, right? It's a packet of condoms.
Nice.
And I look at her, and she just like straight face, like, don't get any idea. She goes, Japan medical team, and she just walks off.
Oh my God.
Don't get any ideas, dog.
Well, God bless your focus.
The condom is in the garage here somewhere. If I search hard enough, I'll find it. I promise.
Don't use them now. It's too late.
I was just gonna say, unless you want kid number 6.
Right.
Yeah, I thought I'd keep it for as a souvenir,
And don't give it to one of your sons. If you have a son, don't tell him to use that.
No, actually, so my oldest son, I think it was probably 7 when I went to Nagano for the Olympics, and I just had such a great time there. I came back talking about Japan, and he fell in love with Japan as a result. I know I have 2 Japanese grandkids.
What?
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Devon, our last 2 questions come as a pair. Greatest achievement, greatest regret.
Greatest achievement, my kids, if you can call that an achievement. I just absolutely love being a father. The greatest regret is that fucking race I lost in high school. Still, I'm supposed to be over it by now, but I'm grateful for that experience because it has made me so much more determined. I had this thing about me when I was younger, perfection. Like, so I'm going to the boys' champs. I'm like, I want to win gold or nothing. If in my head, and this is a conversation I had with myself. If I think I'm not going to win the gold, I'm jogging because I don't want silver or bronze. And I'm in this race, and it wasn't going as well as I expected it to. But then, welcome to life, right? And I jogged the last 300 meters of the race, and I didn't realize how close I was to winning the race.
Ugh.
Yeah, it still gets in my, it still irks me.
Sure.
But I mean but there's a lesson there, like, you do your absolute best. You don't pursue perfection, you pursue excellence. So I've chosen to just, excellence is just doing your absolute best, and we can all do that. So yeah, I still need some therapy on that one.
Still feeling it. I love that.
Yeah.
Sensei Suino, I know you got a question from one of our listeners and our viewers that you want to throw out.
I think one of our guys might have that question in the
Oh,
chat.
sure, I got it right here. I can
Okay.
ask you.
Yeah, why don't you
Yeah.
hit it? Yep.
Okay, great. So from Mark Altamare, loving the Olympic discussion, exclamation mark. But he's curious to hear about Mr. Harris's experience in the martial arts. Like, let's talk about your beginnings. Are you still active? What is it for you?
So my son, the oldest one.
Hey, sorry, Devon, before you go, inspire Mark to get back in the dojo with Sensei Suino with your story. Get him.
All right,
Yeah,
yeah,
for the live-
yeah. So my son Devon, I thought I'd give him a good start in life. Poor kid grew up in America. He played basketball. I played soccer, real football. So we didn't have a sport in common, and he started doing karate. He actually got his black belt in Goju at around 12. So I started doing karate as well, just to have a sport in common. And, I was speaking and traveling, so I was never always at training, but I went there. I saw it as a sport, so I approached it that way. Just kind of did well. I remember the sensei, the first time I sparred, goes, "You've had martial arts training before?" I'm like, "No," because I can kick. But I think it's from all the football, the soccer that I played in the past. And so I go to these tournaments, and I know I'm not the best karate guy there, but I'm looking around this auditorium like, I'm the only Olympian in this place. And so I gave them some Olympic kicks, man. Pam, pam, pam. I won most, not all, and I was always upset when I lost. And the sensei was like, "You don't even come to training. Are you upset that you lost?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course. I expect to win." But yeah, I would just approach this from kind of again, the mental piece, right? Like I know what it is to compete at a high level, and although I don't necessarily have all the karate skills, so I had fun doing that, man. I loved fighting. I loved I can give a good kick. The punching sucked. I was very good at punching, yeah, but I could lay this right foot down real fast.
Is that something you kept up with, or is there any sort of way of thinking that it offered you that even if you don't practice, you still use that way of thinking?
The breathing, that Goju has a lot of breathing. So that's kind of something that I added. I've always been the kind of guy, when I compete, or when I'm in stressful situation, I always breathe anyway, but that was something that, the breathing piece was something that I added to or built on as a result of the experience.
Right on. We have a question here from Justin Shea, one of our black belts in Sensei Dauphin's Club. When you finally achieve something like Olympic career that you wanted, that you strove for, it's the height of athletics. What keeps you humble afterwards?
The fact that I don't like assholes, and I mean, it's as simple as that. And so I don't think you can. I'm very interested in inspiring people and impacting their lives in a positive way. And if you're an asshole, then I don't see how you do that. But it's an attitude I developed in high school. Go back to high school where there was a dude, my friend, the dude he went out for the track team and could run backwards blindfolded and beat everybody. And he was full of himself. And I remember sports day when he was expected to win everything. He had a pulled hamstring, and I just remember the pain that I saw on his face when he could not win. And I remember thinking to myself, when I get famous, I'm not going to, as in popular, I'm not going to be like that. And, you know, I was, the most popular dude in school. And I would like to think that I was pretty humble and approachable.
Mhm.
And it's just my nature as well. So you have to be, though, or you ought to be. Because look, I think you have to recognize your humanity and the humanity in other people, and not because you have achieved something, it doesn't necessarily make you a better person than they are. So you're an accomplished person, but not necessarily a better person, you know? That's how I view it.
We don't have a literal wall of fame here, but if we did, because I don't like assholes, would probably be right in the middle of our PKCC wall of fame quotes. Devon, we do something we call going around the horn. It's the way we go out of our chat. I could talk to you all night, and I know that we all could. This is fucking nuts how much fun I'm having and how I just want to keep cracking into these ideas with you. But time is real. And so what we do is we start with Hanshi Legacy, and we just chat a little about our time with you, and then the last word will go to you. So Hanshi Legacy, what do you want to say about our time with Devon tonight?
Well, I just want to remind him that not many people get to call themselves Olympians. And I think it's something that I've always looked at and wish I had the intestinal fortitude to go after, but I just saw myself not being able to reach that. You know, you got to be respected for that. The other thing is, I also like to remind you so that you don't take things too badly. Only one person wins. Everyone else loses in different ways. And the fact that you tried makes you a great human being. And I also like to say, and I had written this down before you said you were humble. I wrote, I believe you're an honest, inspiring, humble, dedicated person who refuses to fail or quit. Those are awesome.
Thank you,
Awesome
Sensei.
to be as a human being.
Thank you, Hanshi. Sensei Suino?
You know, Devon, every time you and I have spoken, you hearken back to the stories your grandmother told. And I just feel like, and I'm sure you do too, that that's such an important part of who you are, of your character, right? That gave you your ability to visualize, to see into the future, to have imagination and belief in yourself. And, you know, we talk about that in martial arts. Sometimes the people that serve as our teachers, you know, change us completely. I know that's happened to me. It's a powerful part of your story, as is the story of you, you know, sort of jogging out of the ghetto into the hills and seeing what's possible, right? The difference between where you are today and where you could be, and you achieved it. I know this won't be the last time we talk, and I just really want to thank you for coming on today.
Yeah, man. Thank you. Thank you. Looking forward to keeping the link, as we would say in Jamaica.
Yeah,
Definitely.
man.
Thanks, Sensei Suino. Sensei Dauphin?
And then I write tons of notes, and I've been writing so many notes that I've been like, I can't talk about all these notes because we'll be here until midnight, like from the stuff I've learned from you on this call. One thing I want to share with you is Sensei Copeland, who's from Jamaica, who's on this call. He and I are from Windsor, not a great Canadian city, right? And the areas where we live in that city have not always been factory town. Like, I don't think it's like Kingston, Jamaica, but it's a version of Kingston, Jamaica. And so where I grew up, and when I grew up, how I got into martial arts and how is because of my grandmother. My mother wouldn't let me do martial arts because she just thought he's just going to fight more. He's just going to be more aggressive. And I started training with Sensei Legacy. And when I was in university, I started training with Sensei Legacy because he was the teacher at the university that I was attending. And when I came home from Christmas, I asked my mom, I said, I need $100 so I can keep in this karate class? And my mom said, absolutely not. You're there not for athletics, you're there for scholastics. And I was like, shit, what am I going to do? And as I was leaving, my grandmother was living with us, and she came up out of the basement after Christmas, and she looked around and came up to me, and she handed me $100, and she said, you go do that karate thing that you want to do, and don't tell your mom. Right. So we have that commonality with our grandmothers helping us, and I always look for that. But I really liked when you said, I am unwilling to do without what I want. That's something that people should take and move forward with, right? That there's non-starters, joggers, and pushers. And on your shirt, it says, keep on pushing. And I know you're a pusher. And you said you're from the hood. Since Legacy's from the hood, I'm from the hood. I know Since Swino's from the hood. Since Benson's not from the hood, but he wishes he was from the hood.
Too much money.
Yeah. Listen, I know, like, since the Legacy was talking, you're just so confident. You're so intelligent. You're a super handsome guy. Like, you're really easy to look at. And you're a fucking Olympian, brother. Like, it's so cool to talk to an Olympian. Like, a question I got to go away and think about is, how many times have you failed and felt like a loser? That's a question I want to ask a lot more people. That's a great question. That's a question to go away and contemplate. I don't know what I want to do, but I just know that I have to, right? Like, that's an amazing statement too. I've never heard an Olympian say that Olympians are average people with, extraordinary dreams. Those extraordinary dreams can lead average people to be not average, I think. Like, that's the message I'm hearing in that. Also, you wanted to get out of the ghetto yesterday, not today. And that's another question to ask people. What was it that you wanted to do yesterday that you still want to do today? Like, because you need to get on that shit right away. Like, that's a great question. Right? I want you to know that, when you were sneaking in to read books, I work at the University of Waterloo, and the kids still come in now with phones and they take pictures of the books because they can't afford to buy the books. They take a picture and then they leave and they read that screenshot in order to. So what you were doing, kids are still doing it today. They're trying to achieve their dreams by hook or by crook, whatever they need to do to get it done. My helmet was too tight or it was too loose. If I die, I die, but I gotta go. Right? Like, I fucking love that. Right? Like, yeah, everything else is just an excuse, right? That you've learned to be kinder to yourself. Everybody should learn to be kinder to themselves. Listen, I could do a podcast with you about Muhammad Ali. I know Sense Legacy could. I fucking love that guy. He is such an inspiration to me. You can't see it here, but his picture hangs in here. I have more books on Muhammad Ali. I've got every fight on video that he ever did, all his poems. I love that guy. I love that you want to train with Pele. That's another guy that, like, the bicycle kick and that shit. Like, those are people that elevated all of humanity by their efforts. They elevated all of us with the efforts in the life that they lived. And so hearing both of those names is great. Nobody ever said that the greatest benefit was relationships, but I think we all agree that that should be the greatest benefit for everybody, is the relationships that you achieve. That's, I couldn't resonate with me more. And again, Sean said it, but I don't like assholes. None of us like them, Devon. And listen, man, like, I am so proud to have had you on our podcast. This has been like the easiest hour and a half that we've ever had. So nice to just sit quietly and learn. So thank you so much for your time. So grateful for your time.
Appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you.
And Devon, I just want to go out on something that I really appreciated. I love that your greatest regret is a race in high school. Like, that's when I think about what you've achieved and what you're helping others achieve, and that still sticks.
Oh,
I think we lost
It's
Devon
me,
for a
it's me,
sec.
it's me. I'm coming. my
Okay,
way.
great. But that still sticks. There's actually this great Arnold Schwarzenegger documentary, and he's standing in front of a wall-sized mural of himself, and all he cares about is that him and Franco Colombo built a wall before he was famous that's still there because they built the wall well. And when he talks about that, he has this genuine pride. And all the other movie stuff, you see Arnold the showman come on. But when he's looking at that wall that he built before he was ever even Mr. Olympia with Franco, he's so proud. And yours is the sort of flip side, like before you were an Olympia, before you were whatever. I just think that stuff sticks with us because it's so core. It really matters. And it's who we are before everyone else shows up and tells us who we are. And I think it's really cool that you're still processing that. And that one wasn't as positive for you, but I love that, you know, again, with heights you've achieved, like Sensei Oda said, like an Olympian, that's fucking insane. That's still something where you're like, rats, I wish that could have gone differently. Because I can relate to that. Every once in a while I'll get a little high school swing and I'm like, man, I fucked that up. Could have done that better or whatever. And I just think there's a humility around that. I think that's the word I'm looking for. I really appreciate the humility. This has been such a pleasure to chat with you. What do you want to go out on?
You know, first of all, I'm so appreciative. Thank you for inviting me on. This has been an amazing hour and a half. It has been just great conversation. You guys are pretty awesome for a group of martial artists as well. You know, you should try bobsledding next. But you know what, man, you know, we're all Olympians in our own right. You know, we all have average, ordinary people, but all have the ability to dream in extraordinary ways and hence, you know, achieve extraordinary things. And so I just challenge and encourage everyone to do that, to just, you know, push ourselves, get off that pavement and, you know, brave the potholes, brave the cars whizzing by and push ourselves beyond that which life suggests is our destiny, because it isn't. Thank you guys. Appreciate it. Appreciate the time being here.
Thank you, Devon. I
we
wish you could do a little
appreciate
bit.
the fact that you blanked out your camera because you're too good looking and
No, I'm sorry. I use a Canon, and we've been here chatting for so long that the battery died. But so I'm using the camera on my computer now.
Well, we got you. We got your voice, and that's great, and we appreciate it.
It's all good. Ooh, I just went again. What the hell?
Well, we can still hear you. We're just gonna do a quick bit of housekeeping to say goodnight to everybody, Devon. So I just want to say thanks to the people who helped run this show before I throw it over to Sensei Dauphin to talk about upcoming weeks, which is Justin Shea, Andrei Sedyshev, Alden Adair, Robert Shlumsky, and Jesse Blay-Vitow. Without them, we do not have a Punch Kick Choke Chat. We're so grateful. Sensei Dauphin, what do we got coming up?
man, there's a ton of stuff coming up. And honestly, to be honest with you, the next guest, like I know we got a week off and then we're going to go into December and since, you know, remind me, do you remember who the next guest is like that we've been talking to?
Yeah. We got a week off and then Sensei Alex Atkinson is going to be on the 15th of December.
Right. Sensei Atkinson. And then we got a host chat and then we're done for the Christmas break for a little bit. But we've also been doing some shorts and some, you know, there's some stuff that's going to drop with Sensei Legacy and Sensei Suino. We got Johan Scalberg coming on. So while you won't be able to watch live, there's a bunch of cool content and conversations that we're going to drop that people are going to be really excited about. I hope, right? The other thing I want to say is we got a new website. It's really good.
Yeah.
Please, like if you can share that website out, if you find any value in what we're doing, find enough value to just copy the link and paste it into something and send it to somebody and just say like, this is pretty cool. You might value this, right? Even if you don't like social network, which that's cool. Like I get it. Like it's kind of the world's great evil right now, but it is a good communication tool. It's easy to hit a like button. It's easy to follow and just, right? It just helps the people that are doing it. So if you can do those things for us, we'd be grateful. And if you don't, it doesn't matter. We're going to do it anyway, because we just have fun doing this. So yeah. Right
on. Thanks so much. I'm super stoked for this next month and those shorts. And I just want to say thanks to everybody for watching. It's always a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you again, Devon Harris. This is such a treat to chat with you.
Thank you, Devon. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Stay
Thanks,
well.
everybody.
Have, amazing holidays.
You too.
Happy
Thank you.
holidays. We'll talk soon.